Ako si Shri Jayendra, Datu, Kadaugan. Ako ang legal name kay si John Geoffrey Dumug Dabatos Jr.
How did you get into yoga?
So, I got into yoga because of health reasons. Ang ako ang intero nga pagsulod sa yoga kay ang tungod sa ako ang mga sakit sa lawas, sa kalawasan. But generally it was because of health. I got into yoga because of health reasons.
And how long have you been practicing? And
nagsugod ko og yoga pag mayroong 203 sa gikan sa 2003. I started in 2003 when I got into this field of practice.
Then how did yoga start in Cebu?
Oh, kanang pangutanahan, no? It already started way back before I even arrived. So yoga is not at all new in Cebu. In fact, as I arrived in yoga, it's already there. The practices has already been there. The yoga organization called Nanda Marga, which is the Path of Bliss, has already established itself way back in the 1970s or even earlier than that. And prior to that, as we move along and then discover that ancient texts and also lead that this is already a place for practice. Visaya, you can even find it in the Yoga Sutra, but it's actually the civilization that was here before, long before us, our ancestors, pre-Hispanic ancestors were already doing that. In fact, there are even relics that have been found of our traditions. I am coming from a tradition, so I will share to you more about that later on.
Cool. So what do you think is good about yoga in Cebu today, or and bad about yoga?
Well, you're always good point that you're raising, because as a tantric, I practice tantra yoga aside from Ashtanga yoga, because we are in the lineage of Rajatiraj yoga from my Guruji, Sri Sri Anandamurti. We always look at both sides as we deal with this very big cosmic plane, or lila, I would say. And that as we see, you would not even see light if there's no darkness. You would not see the contrast of both. And I don't want to go further than that. I would just want to say that the two always exist altogether. So the good side of how nowadays the yoga community has somehow opened up avenues for people to really expand their human potentialities. I would say that. Part of that is because it's awakened through the number one things that everybody's doing online is postural. How the postures access, or let's say opens up access for the individual in terms of fulfilling certain potentialities. It's because of the energy centers. And maybe further on, for those who have maybe a few idea about it, not just the postures, but being aware, starting the sensing, and then the meditation, which is the most important thing, where you have the access to the cosmic consciousness. And if you don't have any idea what it is not talking about the cosmos outside. In fact, it is going inside. The awareness of breath is key, and further on goes into that. So as I see the community start to practice yoga, they have started to open up their minds. That's number one. But at the same time, as we look into the side of the dark side of it, is that one of the main things that made yoga popular is because of the West. And I'm not saying that the West is not good, but I'm saying the West carries both like a booster of all these good and bad. So one of that is commercialization, where supposedly this practice is being passed down from a guru to the disciple, and the parampara or lineage has been very much kept with secrecy. In fact, in our pre-colonial civilization, we still have it, and until now we do have it. It is being done through martial arts. In fact, the healing aspects of it is also being done that way, where the one that will pass down the tradition will have to choose down the line who it is that will be receiving, and they will have to go through the process. And in yoga, it's called diksha. Diksha is a process of initiation. So these whole traditions are gone with the side of the West, where everything is just being paid for. Nowadays, everybody can get an online certificate. You'll have a certificate already. So, not to put this in the shadow, of course, everybody can have access to these things. Yes? But here's the thing. If you do get access to that, make sure you have the responsibility also to take along with it. Where, in fact, when you try to look into the side how yoga got popularized here, it's because of poses. Now it has just become poses. In the West, that has been the case, especially in the social media access, where it's always been poses. I got my way around through poses, yes, but I'm not limiting myself to that. In fact, that's the reason why I'm now promoting the other side, the other facets of yoga. And I have not shied away from it. I've been even given people opportunity to do the same. In fact, I have already started here in Sugbu, the way we teach and share opportunities of being an instructor of yoga. And that has been a case where it also become both ends, the good and the bad, all at the same time. So in a way, as I look at the shadow of the light, it is actually kind of going into what we call the terms of yoga, Kali Yoga, where instead of making people see the side of yoga where it actually pulls you out from materialism, which is actually pulling people into the tamasika energy, one of the gunas of yoga. Instead of getting people into the sattva guna, which pulls us to an evolution, to a refinement, it instead pulls us down into just purely matter, and in fact just becoming a state of a rock, where it's not even going to move. Instead, it's just going to get into the facet of entertainment. And that's one of the things that I'm actually passionate about, moving and evolving this whole community, Dirisasubu here in Cebu, that I want to try to let people see the other facets of how yoga is beautiful, how yoga is actually enlightening, without even just overusing the term enlightenment and not even knowing what it means, but it actually is what you are getting when you get into the pathways of what the masters, the sages have left before us.
What's the difference between the yoga that you teach and then the yoga that maybe some other people teach?
I share, I would say. The thing about teaching is that it should come from what you do. What I've been doing so far is I haven't been doing any teaching. I've been calling in companions. Ever since I've been teaching, so to say, as a teacher, I've been called for to do a class. The point where I do the class was not just to teach yoga acrobatics, contortionism, and even calisthenics and strength training and coordination and fitness, to be exact. The point there where I come in is to let people be aware, and that should be the premise when we do a yoga class. Now, I'm also in for variety and so on, but what was lost? What is lost? What was lost is the deeper sense of awareness, the connection through not just the breath, attention, but to be going inwards. Okay? Because when we see ourselves doing this practice, not everything else, that's the time that you've come into the point of self-awareness. But when I share, going back to what I do, I share. And what is available everywhere else, and I'm not at all into competition. Where everybody, when they come into a yoga standpoint, especially here, there is a Sugbo. In Sugbo, or in Cebu, I've seen so many who come in here and they discover that this is something that they can make money with, and they see everybody as a competition. That's something that I really try to move away from. Value is there. We earn, yeah? There is an exchange of that. And people do that through what? They give you money. They give you financing. Even they give you donations, for God's sake. So the thing about it, I am here to share. And in fact, I've given opportunity to those who do the same. But it comes with some value. Some people also give out a different way of sharing value. So as I share how I share, they call it teaching, I've been really encouraging everybody else to do the same. And as I give people opportunities to share as well, to be able to come into a platform where they can use their talents, potentialities, and skills in this whole paradigm of life, they can actually access that through a way of greater compassion, some kindness and respect that has been yearning through this whole discipline and practice. For me, I would want to say that, especially in this, in this space, that it is actually a chance, it is a gift being given to us by our ancestors to be able to share what it is to help people and lift people up. And that's what I want to leave as a message also with this question. I share and give opportunities to others to lift people up, enhance their consciousness, enhance their lives, not to make them rich financially, but of course to make them rich with their lives, enrich their lives.
And if yoga continues to commercialize in Cebu, then what's the bad part about that happening? Like, if it continues to commercialize?
I've been saying this, and I've been talking with the communities. We're in the communities of Hare Krishna, Ishkon, and I love them and embrace them so much. This is Bhakti Yoga. And also with Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga here. Everybody is doing yoga here, just to let you know. Especially for those people who are really not aware that Cebu is one of the melting pots from ancient yore, and that you should know that it actually happened to come here through the coming of the Chola dynasty through Raja Muda Lumai, our ancestor. And I'd like you to know that trade and barter is a form of commercialization. It is an exchange of goods. We're talking about goods. Commercialization of goods is of course an innate relationship with it in itself. But with yoga as a practice of a parampara and a lineage tradition, I would say it matters where, no matter if there's value in it, but too much of it right now is not anymore having the spirit of what it was brought forth in the first place. How it was given to me as a present, as a gift, is also very meaningful to me. But how it is being given now to the rest of the population is something to be very concerned about. I did not come to enjoy bringing my head down, to bring my leg up for a long time and destroy my body. I did not come just to have fun and look at everyone else how they look. I did not come just to show off to people I know that I can do something else than what they're doing. So this is actually a sense of urgency I'm calling in for consciousness thought. That everybody who might be watching this, who will be seeing this, would get it into their hearts, not just in their head, second brain. And also feel it in your gut. What is it then that you are doing right now? I mean, I'm telling you, I'm a teacher of postural exercises that you're doing, you call yoga. I do that, yeah. I have my training and I have my certification. I don't have to prove it to every one of you who's been blinded by that paper who you get for a few, what dollars or pesos. So is that a proof for you in your sense of self that you are able to quote unquote teach and so on? So as I basically open up your minds as to what is it that it is doing, I call forth to this community that people are in right now, especially in Cebu, the way I have been brought forth by the ancestors here. What is it that you're doing in our land? Are you creating a form of consciousness evolution of people, or are you just having fun Of course, having fun is not anymore a need because it's already there. It just depends on how you do it. Okay? Nowadays, in this time of age, we can always have fun. And I can tell you that by experience. And I know you know who knows me, there's fun in it. But the question is, if you're creating a sense of exclusivity with what you call fun, and branding it, making it expensive, making money with it, and all of you out there who are also eyes and ears right now here that are doing this so-called commercialization, please make sure that you know your responsibility. And please make sure you know the line of descent from where your ancestors were. And please know where's the root source of what your so-called practice is coming for. Practice is not your physical acrobatic pose and how to get there. The way practice is, it's called in yoga sadhana. Sadhana. And if you don't know what that means, those of you who are in the world of, no matter if it's commercial or not, no matter if you are there, you're not having Facebook, you don't have social media, you still have a responsibility when you start going out there and say, I teach, and you come to me and so on. And this is a beacon that I'm sending out to those who are watching, and eyes and ears and hearts that are open, and gut that is sensing that what is it calling for? What are you doing? And that's a wake-up call for most, because our time here is not going to be eternal, especially in the physical manifestation and the play. My role in the play, to get to wake you up. That's it.
What's missing in a lot of these yoga classes that are modernized?
Well, in the modernized way of yoga, because I am a fitness professional as well, I teach group fitness and I'm a functional movement specialist. What is there? In a group setting, everybody is called for movement and awareness and space, and you get to engage yourself actively. Yes? Good. That's there. But the point where in the specifically so-called yoga modern classes is that where you teach it and where you fragmentalize every part of our, because you want to make a workshop out of it, and everything else comes into just being a fragment of what is supposed to be the whole. And this has been also a message that was called for by the rest of our really internalized mentors everywhere else, and those that are really trying to get people to also wake up. And there are not only me that are doing that in the world, there's a lot more. It's that when we teach this, we want to also encourage everyone to practice the rest. I want to stand by the meaning of yoga. Samyoga ichuktu jivatma paramatmana. The point where the individual will not be able to distinguish itself anymore to the universal. Means that there is no line in between the individual and the universal. It's all one. Kahi-usahan in our local dialect is yoga, oneness. So the whole concept of the drop going into the ocean is not anymore having any distinction. So I call forth in any class also as a message is that what do you do also in and out of the class is very important. As a teacher, as an instructor, you should also leave some hype. I've been talking with Mark earlier, that what is it that every so-called teacher or instructors of the asana practice that are doing to create a sense of hype in the yoga sphere, especially here in Sugbu? What is it? What is the hype, or what is the thing for you to leave your class, for them to get inspired? Is it the lifestyle, or is it the meditation? Is it the sattvic diet? Sattvic diet is very important. If you are teaching yoga, you should actually be doing it already. Okay? And this is also a challenge for your responsibility. You should be doing the same. I have been encouraging everybody that came into the training, it's important for you, this is your responsibility. You go out there in the open and share to everybody you teach yoga, but you yourself, you have to embody it. Sattvic. Now, these are the things that you can actually get people to listen to. And people will they have different emotions to this. One is they'll get challenged. Number two is that they'll get curious about it, right? And then some people might get frustrated about it, why they even got there in the first place, when they thought, oh, I can enjoy a lot of these things. Then you can give a person an experiential approach of these things, and that you will open up pathways for them. And that's the role of a teacher.
How do you see yoga evolving within the next 5 years if it were up to you?
Of course, it's not up to me. I'm just here to steer up to, because people are just so distracted. Even me, I'm distracted, of course. But my goal has been one and the same. When I arrived into the yoga world, I know that this is a gift, as I said in the first few phrases that I mentioned. This gift has to be given and paying it forward. Now, as I pay it forward to people, and I saw there's still ignorance around, when the idea is already there, but then there's ignorance around. How is it that we're trying to get together and then everybody was just trying to get into their individual ways? Because I'm not saying that you all come to me and, I'm not saying that. We all have the same way. The system of yoga, no matter where they come from, and that's also happening everywhere else in the world, is that they all see it in different viewpoints, right? And this is always what you will rebuttal, what you will do as a rebuttal, what you will say as a rebuttal, every time we see a concept of yoga. Oh, everybody sees it in different aspects. Yes, of course, everybody sees it in different aspects, so everybody comes in different ways. Like I come in a different way, and you all come in a different way, but where are you taking it? That's the point. So as I put my part as I chip in our local expression, as I chip into this conscious evolving movement, I would like to say there's one, is the rooting down of our ancient knowledge and culture, which was long gone and was actually spread out and scattered by who else was that is really, in the first place, who was really intentionally doing it, is to get back to our roots, number one. Because I know that when you really get to the part of this, when you see what is there, what is beneath, whatever you see right now as the facade, maybe postures, breath works, the meditation facade and everything else, down there's a lot more that you are to see down the rabbit hole. So that is something that I will get you to be, I hope you see this, what I'm saying to you. This is so exciting for me, and I've been discovering this every time I go sit down on myself and I get quiet. In fact, there are a lot of communities coming in here. My friends that are in the plant medicine community are also discovering this. My God, what are you not excited for about this? There's so much more than what you see in your senses in this whole physical realm. There's so much more when you just sit down, close your eyes, listen to your breath, shut up and keep quiet. There's so much more that you can discover right there. In fact, it's mind-blowing. And that you're just waiting to be stimulated. In fact, you're overly stimulated. But yet you still want to be stimulated. Like, this is very much the same as addiction. And so what is yoga therefore supposed to call you back? Is to get you out of this addiction. Because this is indulgement. It's aparigraha in yoga and yama. Okay? So this is a point where, as a teacher, as a responsibility we have, we want to try to take everybody and maybe stir them up, shake them up, and maybe not always giving them or spoon-feeding them what they need to know. And that's what I also do to my students. I seemingly do whatever it is that they think, but of course I give them a lesson if they're ready for the lesson. So if I'm to take that part of doing something or leading you somewhere, this is what is coming up for you. It's a discovery of something really beautiful in the lives, in our culture per se. If you still have that patriotism in your heart, if you're yearning to look for your ancestral knowledge, that's something that you gotta know.
What about yoga teachers that eat meat? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's always a controversial question I would ask. for me, as I leave and then gave opportunities to the rest of the people who've trained with me, I always give it as a responsibility for them. And I actually also mentioned that earlier on in this interview. But here's the thing, never is it that I need to condemn any. We don't need to condemn, but it is actually to challenge each one of these folks. Because what is the beauty of the human being is that the human being is evolving. And as we evolve, this actually is an innate capacity for us to see a little bit more better. But here's the thing also I want to take, because some, with this me culture, are actually taking it in their own hands and are not even heeding calls and words and messages from their mentors and then the line of the parampara. And it's okay if you're guided by the principles of sadhana. The principles of sadhana is that you are consciously making effort. That's the meaning of sadhana. But if you haven't even made effort in the first place and you just want to go back to your slumber, lethargic nature and energy of just being there, that's tamasic energy. And that's in the principles that we're actually dealing with, that we're trying to pull ourselves in the first place. It starts with ourselves. Then you say, it's alright, whatever Jaya is saying, don't have to believe. Of course, that's right, you don't have to believe me. But you got to work on it on yourself. That's always the point. The blame thing, the making excuse thing, is not really a principle in yoga. It's not there. In yoga, we move forward, and we consciously there. And then also, again, as I mentioned in the first, and you've asked in the first question, about the light and dark, it exists. And I know it exists. But then there will always be a movement with it. If you see the symbol of yin and yang in Tai Chi, and that is actually how it works. That is actually a remnant of the tantric knowledge that we have. It's a Shiva Shakti, and that is very much essential into a practice as well for people. So going back to the meat-eating industry, and I want to really specify that, it's an industry. So if you're a conscious-driven person already, you should be aware of this. I don't have to explain this to you. In fact, there's a lot more people that are not doing the physical asanas that people call now in the social media as yoga. There are far more people that are consciously working their ways with mindful, conscious consumption, I would say. Forgot the word consumption. This mindful consumption culture is already there, right? That is actually facing this meat industry. I mean, I'll have to say this again. Meat industry. Not the civilization of the past that is consuming meat. No, the meat industry is the one that we're actually trying to tackle with, right? So I'm not anywhere condemning anything. This is not about that, but this is actually just to uplift your knowledge about it, whatever it is that you believe in this meat industry driven culture, I would say.
What does it mean to be awakened?
I say a lot of words and I hear a lot of messages and I hear a lot of guidance from great minds and people. I love to, and this brought me into slow words right now because you mentioned awakening. I'd love to simplify that with words and then explain it, right? But the most important part of it when you say you're awakened is what's happening around you. And I wouldn't want to respond to it by an explanation. It's just see for yourself.
And for yoga, what's the definition of yoga that for you? Because some people have different definitions.
Yeah, you
like
gotta
it's
Google,
an exercise.
Your Mr. Google will give you all these, and then all different pictures, and I've been sharing that a lot with people who come into training, and then I give them, reach to them, and try to approach them in all, subtlety so that people don't get shocked with what it really means. All right, in the first place, yoga is never a religion. Never a religion. Let me repeat that again. Never a religion. No belief systems are there and set. This is a way of a human capacity, as the way the sages from the past have been constantly working themselves out, and they just happen to leave something as a system. And as a system evolved down the line, it has been passed through as a tradition, and as I mentioned in the first parts of the interview. As it is passed down, this is very much taken with great sense of sacredcy. Again, sacred. As it is sacred, we need to also listen and heed the call of the messages from the past. And as I move further, this whole compassion, pursuit for the greater infinite love, and I always listen to the message of the Guruji. No need for me to specify who it is, whichever they come from, is that message from the Adi Yogi, first yogi who was there in text in some Shankila Upanishads. Some yoga ityuktu jivatma paramatma. So when the one comes back home, that's it. So if everybody else is listening to everything else that is just putting themselves out there commercially, whatever, it's up to you. It's your choice anyway. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but it will never change. Some things will never change. Some facts, some truths, greater truths. So I'll make all that. Yeah.
I think when I first started yoga in Cebu, it was Ananda Marga was the prominent space to do yoga, and that comes from a tradition of lineage,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So right now it seems like that's sort of going away. Like there's more people got a certificate online, and then they open up a yoga studio. What's the difference between getting a certificate or learning yoga from a lineage versus just learning it from online course?
You know what, there's not a problem with it learning online, but it actually instead gives you and urges you and encourages you to discover it more. That would be a different perspective. For me, I know a friend of mine, his name is Mark, is doing it online, but he's actually connecting to the lineage, right? So that's a point of view where people take, but if that is, and here's a challenge, if that is being seen as a way to commercialize and make it another industry, that's why it's being exposed already. There is a documentary being shown already for that. It's called The Yoga Industry. You can check it out, I think it's still available. So when it is becoming an industry where people, this is the challenge now, because it will be accessible for almost everybody, right? But there's a lot of them that access this as a way to make money and just to, whatever, create a niche for themselves to be unique. Everybody wants to be unique, I know that. It's a naturally occurring thing right now. So as people try to create something for themselves, and then at the same time they are in pursuit of the material so much, it's heavy. They want to earn something, they want to get somewhere, they want to buy something, they need it. And then the need creates this thing. And then they saw that in this market of the unknowing people who wants to get healthy, who wants to cure themselves mentally, who wants to work on themselves. And here comes the person who has money, who has the access. And even there are people who were able to get access because they have money. They come from a well-funded family. So they can travel everywhere. And then when they travel, they get the access to train, especially when you go to India. I mean, I personally have generally had a knowledge of India because it's in my culture. And just to let you know, when a lot of people think that as a tourist they are going 1 month, they come back here and they say, I know everything I teach you. or I can teach you yoga. Unfortunately, that's a mindset that's really ignorant. You're just a tourist. What can you learn just being there for 1 month? Even us who've been practicing this for 2 decades, we never even showed to people and share. I know people that have been here for about 5 decades already. Gold, my dear. Never was it that they were sharing out there in the open that I'm a teacher, I'll teach you. No. They love it, they embody it, they embrace it, and they practice it. They're not loud about it in social media, but they're showing that in their lives. I can point to you, son. So the thing is, as I go back always to the question, this commercialization and also this way of getting the certificate online or being a tourist and coming back with a certificate. Let me go back to that. Being a tourist and then coming back with a certificate, quote unquote, to teach. I would say it's a responsibility for you to go deeper to yourself and always to remember the line of descent. That's why in yoga they always have this lineage system, and that lineage has to always be looked up to. And that's a culture in the West that's not there. I mean, some do. I mean, in fitness they have this guru also system where the fitness guru, like they call out a certain person's name, and when they're doing that, why can't you do the same in your yoga practice? In fact, I would hear some people who would always be thankful to their mentors, right? But it would somehow be their direct mentor where they got to pay their training from. And it's very obvious, and I've heard it all the time. Oh, I'm thankful to this, got my teacher training from, or a certain school. Hey, don't forget the line of descent where they got it from. For example, your Yoga Alliance and your Yoga Works comes from BKS Iyengar. Why? Most of his students created your Yoga Works, which is actually the birthplace of the Yoga Alliance organization. When in fact it is not the crediting system of yoga. It is not an authority of yoga. It's just a registering system. And I want to try to emphasize this, especially for the unknowing people who are exposed to yoga. They think that it is authority of yoga. No, it's just a registry. Where? In America or wherever. If you're in America, you want to register, it's up to you. It's always a choice. In fact, there's a lot more registry of yoga than you think. Try to check it out. So it's not just your Yoga Alliance. So if you're showing out these badges, make sure you're responsible for that. In fact, I will challenge you, those people that are doing these showing out their logos, be responsible for what you're doing. Therefore, good thing that the people that are authority in that registry are not looking at you, are not being strict with the compliance of policies and structures and guidelines and how you administer your classes, administer your training, so on and so forth. Because that in itself is an industry. So you got to check with your industry what you're doing. So those of you who get deluded by this, okay, with this whole thought that logo presents you something, it is not representing the yoga in itself. It is presenting a registration, just a membership of a certain groups of people. There's a lot more around the world, by the way. So you choose. It is not one. So I'm breaking the myth here of popularity of just one. In fact, I was also coming from that same. I did not enlist, but I come from that. I also have training of that same organization at the same time through a school. But do I have to put out there in the open? Oh, believe me, you don't need to. Just do your life. But the way people are doing now is that they want to show that logo to help them with credibility. Yeah? That's what you do. So you got to prove it. That's a challenge to you. Those of you who have their spaces and whatever it is that you call your organization with, in the name of yoga, then the responsibility for you to be compassionate. Then you do your service work. You don't have to be overly greedy about your profit and your income, especially because you're going to create a form of same way of slavery here. So when you do that, you have a studio, you've got teachers. Make sure you give teachers enough for them as an exchange of value. You give them value as well. You're going to be compassionate to all levels. Okay? So there's no point here of this industry of having somebody greedy. When in that is the case, then you scrap it out. That's not anymore yoga. Call it something else. Okay? Alright, so that's for me, my take.
Okay. For people starting to do yoga, let's say they did 1 or 2 classes, what should they look for what would they consider a good yoga teacher?
Well, you choose it in your heart. Try not to be hyped up with the physical poses. We all can do a lot physically, yeah. In fact, I would really encourage everybody to also experience it. So when most of the teachers that they recognize as a teacher are mostly doing the physical parts. There are a lot of teachers that are doing the motivational part, meditation part. They're not so much out there also, loudly. The ones that are so loud are the ones physically, because you have a phone, you hold it, you get fed by it. You get always constantly stimulated by it. So that creates a need. So in the mindful part of this, we try to make sure that we're aware that these are certain instructors. So the right term basically I would say is the physical postures instructors. In fact, I coined the term Mahasanas because Maha means the value that you give to something because it's great. Asana is actually the postural sides of yoga in the 8 limbs of yoga specified there, and you can also find it in the Hatha Yoga tradition. So if I say that politically correct, it's Mahasanas. So the word Mahasanas is not at all something egotistical, but it's something that describes what everybody else is doing. So for those people who don't know, because people always attribute to the things that the names to some person. So let's just say I'm a person who said that. Doesn't have to be because of consciously working on it. So as we get into that whole concept of the idea of us where we are at in the teaching world, how we are going to really, also the thing about your question mark is that something about the impact, right?
Yeah, like what to look for in the qualities of
the impact of a teacher.
Yeah, the impact.
So I would say the qualities of a good teacher, there are so many good teachers out there. It's really not just in your mind, it's into your heart and your gut. And the hype is fine. Everybody is always into the mode of trying out, I want to try this, I want to try that. Of course, you can all try that. But you would notice that in your heart. Not everyone is yet sensitive to this. And even me, I'm constantly working on it. That there are those that deludes, there are those that influences in their own ways that would drive them to, buy something. This is really persuasion. And these are skills that can be learned. And there are so many that are good at it. Yeah, so it's just like selling something. So yoga practice and those great mentors out there are not necessarily selling it. They're doing it.
When I first did yoga in Hoboken, New Jersey, it's donation based, and they did chanting and meditation.
Yeah.
Why are there no more yoga studios like that?
It's nice to hear that you have a studio doing that there. In Sugbo, for example, and in the whole Philippines, I would say people got an ick of it every time because of the ick is because of the concept that it points to a certain religion. It points to a certain Hinduism where they don't know really, everybody don't know what is Hinduism. And if you ask me, come to me, I'll talk to you about it. Let's sit down, let's have some tea. So the point where it's not so much available, it actually is. There are places that are still doing that. The reason why a lot of them are not offering it is because it's not really in their value systems in the first place. Even these so-called schools and teacher trainings are not even teaching this. And me, for example, as I teach people, I just tell them basically to offer that in the class. Of course, the postural thing is what they've learned, but they never forget, or they never were missed with any kirtana, and then even exposed to the community. Our Cebu community is so rich. We still have Amitabha doing sound healing right now. The Tibetan Gongs, he's doing the frequency right now, where you can always check it out online. I know it's a lot of their information, no? Of course, our drum circle community is here. Our movement side, of what you ever call every facade and different varieties you call there in the realm of movement and dance. So many in the Western concept that are commercialized as well. Okay, ceremonies, rites, and rituals. It is our innate, ancient, traditional practice. So we don't even. If I'm going to say to you, all these rites and rituals, I also found this ever since when I was exposed to the tribal communities. It's there. So as these tribal ways are presenting themselves now in the Western spaces, I would say Western spaces because most of this is influenced by the West. As this comes out into the open, I would like you to know, check out my ancestors in Ifugao. Check out my ancestors in the Tiboli tribe and everybody else there. Check them out. And also check out the ancestors of an Incan culture, American Indian culture, the Aztecs and the Mayans, and every tribal culture. There's no such unique thing that you're doing out there. It's being done. Nothing new.
So it seems your plan for the future of yoga and also what you're doing here is to teach the past. So what's the benefits of learning about our ancient culture?
Right.
What would people benefit?
I always picture out in the great big ocean about a boat and a sailboat. That it can go everywhere. The wind strikes one direction, you go there, another direction, you're there, and so on. If that's your life, that's fulfilling for you, again, that's always a pathway you choose as a conscious being. But here's the thing. As you go a certain direction, you need, what is that?
The
sail is one, but you also need one, because the rudder.
Like
the rudder. The steer.
Yeah, the
Yes,
steer.
exactly. Down there you get a rudder
Yeah.
that will actually point you out to the direction you're heading.
Yeah.
And you got to know the way, you got to know the system. You got to know, I was riding it with my good friend, Buzzy, his Island Bus community. I've sailed with him with our ancient boat, and he's reviving that as well, and I love this guy's heart and passion. So every time he draws in one direction, it's not just going to be straight up, like the way you see in the movies or people with sailboats. It's one direction, you go head up. No, you're not. You got to manipulate the sail in one way so that you can actually get to that specific point. And also at times you want to stop. Sometimes no matter how strong the wind is, you can always put some brakes on your boat and just stop right in the middle. I also experienced that with Buzzy. So amazing in this culture. And then when you're heading into one direction, you need to see the stars. If you've seen the movie Moana, Maui went up to do like this. Yeah. This is a knowledge from our ancestors. This is a knowledge from our past. This is ancient, but it is the way it is. It is how they went through that. But you can always innovate once you know the knowledge. They have all done innovation, but it is important that you get the knowledge. Where do you get that from? If you want to root down, you got to put your anchor down and just really connect down to the bottom. Or if you're a tree, you get to go access the mycelium network. You get access to the roots of the network of all the flora, species around. You get to communicate and you get to connect to the whole, not yourself as one. You never can be an island. That's the truth. You can never go alone. The forces will always be there for you. Not just necessarily physically, but spiritually. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more, my friend. Within the space and time, I would say just enough for now. In fact, we're doing something here as a community. We're developing and not necessarily changing. We're continuing our traditions. In fact, you're here right now in the Langob, our cave, and this is our ancestral heritage community here for the yoga community in Sugbu. We called this before Kang Shri Lomay Sugbu. If you want to get some references of this, you can look into the book of Hobirito S. Abeliana. We have this Aginid Baik sa atong tawarik, where you can find traces of our past from our great ruler or leader when he came in here. His name is Shri Rajamula Lumay, and he was our elder at the same time, who carries in the knowledge. By the way, Chola dynasty, where do you come from? If you look at it. So this is where a lot of his Bahandi, I would say, his legacy, are going to be brought back, I would say. And the community are now coming together. I would say the Bakbak Bisaya community by Kokoy and the Karakua Productions, I have linked up with them. And of course Mark Martin, as I'm going to be working with him. So again, there's a lot more to look forward to in terms of culture and tradition and heritage knowledge here. And we are connecting from the heart of the archipelago, Dili sa Kang Sri Lumay Sugbu. So we're bringing our roots and connections alive again. That's something to look forward to from this coming year on. Yeah.
So if you would end this interview like how you would end your yoga class, how would you end it?
I would end with a very, very good prayer of me as an elder, a chieftain of this island in Sugbu. I would say, and this is not to really make believe of that, because it is really what it is. We need to bring back the culture of the Datus. There are a lot of Datus around here, and I respect them with all my heart, and I heed to them with their knowledge also of our traditions. But I'm also going to give my part right now. As one of them, I will try to get a close prayer into our tradition. Buong katol ha bulawan, maula na atasa, ipuan ko pinaaglaw. Buong katol ha bulawan, maula na atasa, ipuan ko pinaaglaw. Buong katol ha bulawan, maula na atasa, ipuan ko pinaglaw. Heart of gold and desire strong to save and protect the weak and the oppressed. And that is a responsibility I leave to everybody, not just for myself, those in the community that I'm with. I'm encouraging you all to come and let's unite together and bring the spirit of kahi-usahan. Kahi-usahan, kauhi-usahan means oneness. Oneness, it means yoga. And to connect with us, let's work together, which is so far-fetched in this modern world. But then let's try to make it a project, make it a goal. Daghang salamat sa tanan. Ako si Datu Kadaugan of the Batikan, or we call Patikan, which is still alive. It's just still alive. We never got eliminated. We never got, what do you call that? Extinct or all this. We never got out. We're still alive. The knowledge of the ancestors are still here.